Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the literary device called an irony. Now, an irony is an interesting figure of speech because it is very relatable, as you will see when we proceed to the examples. But at the core, irony is just a contradiction between what is expected and what actually happens. So it is a battle between expectation and reality. All right. But let's get into the lesson. Now, yes, this image is very fitting because it encapsulates what an irony is all about. Now, it says nothing is written in stone, yet what is written, those same words are written in stone. So it is an irony. This would be an example of an irony. Nothing is written in stone, but the words nothing is written in stone are written in stone, right? So as I said, at the core, an irony is a contradiction between what is expected and reality, okay? Now, there are generally three types of irony. We have situational, we have verbal, and we have dramatic. Now, because an irony, because an irony deals with expectation versus reality, it can often produce humor because what you would expect to happen is sometimes so far from what actually happens. That is what can cause the humor. And the second purpose of irony is that it causes the reader or viewer to analyze the situation. Yes, because if you have a situation whereby the opposite to what you would expect to happen happens, it would force you to stop and think and analyze everything. And it may make you think about how different or how we can actually be very wrong in our assumptions because we would have our own expectations and then the reality will present us with something different. So that causes us to think about situations, right? So those are the two purposes of irony. Now let's get into the first type of irony, which is called situational irony. And this is going to be very relatable because we all experience ironic situations on a daily basis. All right. So this occurs when the opposite of what is expected to happen takes place. All right. So when something happens and it is the opposite to what you would expect to happen, that would be an example of situational irony. So let's look at the examples. A fire station burns down. That's ironic because the fire department is the entity that is responsible for putting out fires. So of course it is ironic when they end up being the victims of um of fire, right? That becomes ironic because that is very different to what we would think. Okay? So that would be an example of an irony. All right. Two, a marriage counselor files for divorce. Once again, you would not expect that because a marriage counselor's job is to try to resolve marital issues. So it's an irony or it is ironic when when a marriage counselor files for divorce. You would not expect that. You would think that if their job is to resolve marital issues or to help to resolve marital issues, then the last thing you would think they would do is to actually file for divorce, right? And the third example, a police station is robbed. Once again, the police will be an entity that solves crimes, that reduce that reduces crimes, right? But it is ironic when they are the victims of a crime, right? So it's like the first example of a fire station, right? So when a police station is robbed, that is an irony. And you will see that all three of these examples can make you laugh because once again, it is these situations are situations that you would not think of, really, that you would not think about given the context, right? You would not think that a fire station would burn down, or you would think that a fire station would be the last place that would be burnt, given that the fire station or the fire department is the entity that deals with fires, putting them out. You would never believe that a marriage counselor will file for divorce because a marriage counselor's job is to help people to resolve marital issues, right? And keep them together. And three, a police station is robbed. You would never expect that because the police is the entity that solves crimes, that reduces crimes, right? So all of these are very good examples of irony. And as you see from the examples, this is very relatable because how often have we experienced something in our life that is totally different to what we would have expected? All right. And let me give you another example of situational irony from a movie. So there was a guy in a movie. In fact, let me give you the name of the movie. The name of the movie is Pain and Gain. All right. So the victim in the movie, right? If you're familiar with the story, the victim in the movie flees his home country. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was Colombia. All right. He flees his home country because he fled his home country because there was a lot of kidnapping. But when he goes to when he arrives to what country was it? I think it was Las Vegas. Oh no, Miami. It was Miami. But when he flees to Miami, he ends up being kidnapped. So that's an example of an irony because he left his home country with the intention of avoiding a particular problem, but he ends up he ends up facing that problem in the country that he flees to. That would be an example of irony. All right. If you're familiar with Pain and Gain, the movie, you would know what I'm talking about. All right. Now let's move on to the second form of irony, and this is called verbal irony. Now this is verbal, so this means that this is spoken, okay? So this will occur in like dialogue. So this occurs when someone says the opposite to what they really mean. Once again, a contradiction, but the difference here is that this is spoken. It is done to mock or severely underplay something to the point of ridicule, okay? And verbal irony is usually directed towards someone. So that's verbal irony. All right, and let's look at some examples. I know I have betrayed you, but you can trust me this time. Now, in this situation, if you are talking to someone and if you tell this to someone or say this to someone, they may think that you're taking them for a fool. Because if you have done so many things that would make that person lose trust in you or what have you, and you tell them, I know I have betrayed you before, but you can trust me this time. It's like, are you serious? So this would be an example of verbal irony, right? Because you're practically underplaying, as the definition said, you're underplaying, you're severely underplaying the, wait, hold on. No, let's go back. Well, you're severely underplaying something to the point of ridicule, and that's exactly what is being done in the first example. Now, you've betrayed this person several times, but expect them to trust you this time. Really? It's like, really? Okay. Second example. On the way to school, the school bus had a flat tire, and the bus driver said the day couldn't have started any better. Of course, he's not being serious, right? He's not being serious. And three, upon seeing her son's untidy room, a mother said, "You could win an award for cleanliness." All right. So you see that what she actually means is totally different to what she actually says, right? What she actually means is different to what she actually says. And you may look at this and say, is it this sarcasm? Well, yes, sarcasm is a form of verbal irony. But when you're sarcastic, usually sarcasm is directed towards someone, right? But verbal irony is it could be directed to someone, or it could just be general. Like, for example, for the second um sentence, the day couldn't have started any better. That's not directed at someone, that's just him, that's just the driver talking maybe to himself, who knows? But it's usually directed at someone. So sarcasm is a form of verbal irony. Yes, that is true. It's a form of verbal irony because we usually use sarcasm to ridicule someone or to mock someone. All right. So sarcasm is a form of verbal irony. Yes. All right. So anytime someone says something that is totally different to what is actually happening, to the point that there's no way that that person can be serious in what they say, that would be a form of verbal irony. So you would see, if you see an untidy room, how could you be saying that? How could you say that the person could win an award for cleanliness? Like that makes no sense. If the school bus has a flat tire, what do you mean the day cannot have started any better? That would delay your arrival by God knows how long, depending on how fast you're able to change the tire. Of course, that will cause problems. And the first example, what do you mean you can trust me this time? If you betrayed me several times, you expect that I'm going to trust you now? Right. So these are examples of verbal irony. But just remember that it is when someone says something that is different to what is actually happening to the point of ridicule, right? Right, because they're underplaying something to the point of ridicule. All right. Now, dramatic irony. So this is a little different from the other two. So this is going to occur when the audience is aware of something that the characters within the story are not. So dramatic irony is going to take place it's going to occur in plays and movies and things like that, where you have an audience that is watching whatever is going on, right? Because it occurs when the audience is aware of something that the characters within the story are not, all right? So let's look at an example. So this is one that we would experience a lot because how often have we been watching a series or a movie and we knew what was going to happen before the characters actually found out or what have you, right? So let's look at some examples. In a horror film, a character goes into a house he thinks is empty, but the audience knows that the killer is in the house, right? So we know that the character is in danger, but that character does not know that, right? The character in the movie thinks that the house is empty, but we know that the killer is inside, but they don't know that, right? Two, a woman thinks her boyfriend is acting strangely because he is about to propose, but the audience knows that he is planning to run away with another woman. All right. So this is another example of dramatic irony. Now we know that he is going to run away with another woman, even though he's trying to propose to one woman, right? He's actually going to run away with another. Now, when you see this happening, you would see people getting emotional about a particular film or a particular series because it's like, we know, have you ever been watching a series and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You're doing foolishness, right? Because we know that that character is about to make a silly decision, right? All of those are examples of dramatic irony, right? And you can say that this helps to engage our emotions and get us to be more invested in what is actually taking place within the story or what have you. All right. Now, this is a very popular example. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the story of Romeo and Juliet, which is a play that was written by Shakespeare. So the audience knows that Juliet is in the drug sleep. Thus, when Romeo thinks that she is dead and kills himself, followed by Juliet doing the same, it increases the audience's shock and helplessness. Okay. So Julia is actually asleep, right? But Romeo sees her and thinks that she's dead. And he kills himself, right? But then Juliet wakes up and realizes he's dead and she kills herself, right? But the thing is, Romeo does not know that she's actually asleep, right? But we, as the audience, know that she's asleep, but he doesn't know that. So it just makes us feel like, oh dear, right? Dude, she's asleep. She's not dead. You know, it makes you feel you would jump out of your chair and, knock some sense into him, right? But yeah, you can't do that, obviously. So this is dramatic irony. This is a little different to the others because generally irony involves a contradiction between expectation and reality. But this one is a little different. This occurs when the audience knows something that the characters within the story do not. All right. All right, so this brings us to the end of this lesson on irony. I'm sure you would have had a good laugh. I hope so. As always, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.